There are a lot of different ways to solve a Rubik's Cube. And there are some tutorials out there saying it's possible to be solved in just 2 moves, but those tutorials are just lying. It's very unlikely that a cube can be solved in just by repeating 2 moves. But there are a lot of tutorials out there that are really good, and they actually have helped a lot of people solve their first cube. And in this video, I'm going to teach you guys how to solve just the standard Rubik's Cube. So when you look at a cube, what most people think you do is solve something that looks like this, which is one-sided cube. But this isn't entirely right. You do something very similar to this, but rather than solve just one side of the cube, you're gonna make sure other pieces are lined up too. Now you may not understand, but it's gonna look something like this. So we have one side solved, but also all these pieces have to be matching. We don't really care about pieces in this layer yet, but this is called layer solving. There are 3 layers to a cube, 1, 2, 3, and solving one layer at a time is a lot easier than solving side by side. So first we're gonna solve something like this. Okay, in order to solve the first layer, what you want to do is you want to find the white centerpiece, sorry, and hold it on top. Also, the yellow centerpiece should be on bottom. If you have a different color scheme, then maybe it'll be different, but most cubes have the same color scheme. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna find an edge piece, which is one of these pieces between the 2 corners, like this, with white on it. So like this one, this has white on it, and we generally want white to be on the bottom side, not like one of these pieces. This piece would work, but not this piece, because this is a corner. It's a different, because the corners have 3 colors on them, edges only have 2 on them. So what you want to do is you want to hold white on bottom generally, and then we're going to look at this other color, and we're going to move it around until it's matching up, and then we could just do this, put it in the cross, and then this piece is actually solved. So then we could do the same thing with this, which it's already connected, so we can just do that, and it solves the cross. Now white is on the bottom layer, but it's not on the bottom side. So what we do here is we could just move it directly underneath, like we could pretend this is the red color, and then put it up here. Even though this is not correct, we could fix that later. We'd have the same case like this, so we just put green directly under the green center, and we do this. And this is a very intuitive way to flip a single edge. It looks like this. What you want to do is you want to move it over here, so it's on the right side. You want to move its spot over to the right here, and then you want to put this up here, and then you move the cross back so that all the other colors will be there. Well, so that all the other colors that you've already solved will match up. And we could do the same thing with this. So once again, move it to the side. We move this over here, move this up, and move it back. It's really simple. If you don't understand, I could go into some detail in a different video on how to solve the cross. Most people, what they do is after this step, if they had something like a cube that looked like this, they would just solve the side. But once again, that's not what we're doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for now these corners that have white on them. Generally, we want it to be in the yellow layer. And we're going to put yellow on bottom now. And then what we do is we want to get this in here. But the reason we want this particular one to go here is because it has orange and blue on it. So it's going to go between the orange and blue edges. Also, so it would go between these 3 centers, but we're mainly focusing on the edges. If you have the cross solved, it would look like this. So all the centers are matching with their edge, and we could use that to help determine where all the corners will go. And this one needs to go here. So we're going to perform these 4 moves to get this in here, and we're going to repeat the moves until white is on bottom. So the 4 moves look like this. Now, how most people would usually do that is like this, but a much faster way to do it is just hold the cube like this, this, and then push with your right index finger, and you could just, and if you keep on repeating that, you'll generally get faster at it. You don't have to worry about going that speed yet, but it will come in handy later. So back to this, it's not solved yet, but if we repeat the moves, eventually it'll be right. And how you can tell if it's right is if it's matching the edges right next to it. So we have the same thing here. It's not solved yet. This one needs to go here because of the, if you look at the colors, it just needs to go here because blue is here and red here. So it's not solved yet. And now it's solved. Also, the edges will not, these second layers will not matter yet. And then we have this, and it's solved first time, but not all. It could be 1 time, 3 times, or 5 times if you're curious. Anyway, next what we're gonna do is we would move on to the second layer, but there is an issue. Is the first layer is not solved. So if you don't have any more yellows on top, I mean whites on top, then what you want to do is you want to find a corner that would be in the bottom layer, and you take it out using the 4 moves. Just hold it on the bottom right, and now it would be in the top layer, and then you could do the moves until it solves. Next, you want to solve something that looks like this, which will be the second layer. We are completely ignoring the top layer for now, but it will be very useful to search. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look in the top layer for pieces that do not have yellow on them, which would only be edge pieces. So we'll look at like this edge piece, for example, and we want to do is look at the front color, and we want to move the bottom 2 layers around a little bit until we find where it needs to go. So this is green, and it's now connected to the green center. And now what we do is we move it to the right. If this is matching, then that means we're going to do the right hand side, but it just happens to be that it would match on the left side. So what we're going to do is we're going to move it away. We're going to move it away from where it needs to go. So if it's going to the left side, it gets to go to the right side. And then what you're going to do is, I know it's going to be a little confusing, but the 4 moves we talked about earlier, what it would look like if you're doing with your left hand looks like this. So if you could get used to doing that with your left hand as well, then that would be really useful, because what we do is we push the edge away, and then since it's going to the left, we do the left hand version of the 4 moves. And then what we're going to do is make the left side the front side. We're going to rotate like that. And then we would just do the 4 moves to solve that corner, which should be which should only take 1 time. So we'll do that again. This needs to go away from where it needs to go. We take this out using the left hand side. We make the left side the front, and then do the opposite. So if it needs to go to the right, it's the same thing, except we move away from where it needs to go, which would be the left this time. Do the right hand 4 moves, make the right side the front side, and then do the opposite. It's very simple, and if you have a case like this where the second layer is not solved, but there's no more in the top layer that is not yellow, we could just put it on the right side and then do the right algorithm, which would look like this. And then we could just solve that piece normally. Also, if you're wondering what an algorithm is, it's a sequence of moves that solves pieces. So like that was an algorithm to solve OLL, and then this will be an algorithm to solve the cube. You don't have to learn all these yet, but that's just an explanation of what an algorithm is. It's a sequence of moves in order to solve something. So now that you have solved the first 2 layers, and if you want to get faster at cubing, this is also called F2L. Then what you're going to do next is obviously solve the last layer. But it may be a little confusing. So what you're going to do is we want to solve something very similar to what we solved earlier. It's going to be the yellow cross, which will look like that's wrong color. it will look something like this on the first step, and then then when we're completely done with it, all the edges will be matched up. So what we're going to do is we want to get yellow on top on all of them. In this case, we have none. So in this case, we could hold it from any position we want to and do a front move like this. Do the 4 moves I taught earlier, and then undo that. There's a couple ways you could undo the first move. You could do it with your opposite hand. You could do it with your wrist if you have a bad cube. There's a lot of ways to do it. So anyway, and then we're gonna ignore all the corners for now because the corners are gonna be the last step. Next, what we want to do is if we have this case, which is kind of like an L, just put it like this, and then we do this. We would do the same thing, and then we have a straight horizontal line. If we have a horizontal line, we want to hold it horizontal, and if it's like that, then just make it a horizontal line, and then perform the 4 moves, and then we have the first step of it complete. Next, what we're going to do is make all these edges in the right spot. So what you want to do is you want to generally hold it instead of having it where the most pieces of as possible are solved, unless that would solve the cross, the entire yellow cross. What we're going to do is we're going to hold it to where only one is solved, and this will make sense later if you understand how this works. But what we're going to do is if we want to hold that one piece, like we could see that none of these other edges are in the right spot, we're going to do this algorithm. And maybe the first time it will solve all the edges, but not all the time will it. So for this case, we could do the algorithm once more. And it didn't solve it. And it did. So you want to do it like that. If we have a case where no matter what, only 2 edges and they're opposite, only 2 can be solved, what we do is we just perform that algorithm from earlier anywhere, and then there always be an option where only one is solved, and then you could solve it from there. This next step, what we're going to do is we're going to flip the cube upside down, and we're going to look at the bottom right corner, and if it has yellow on bottom like this one is a good corner, and this one needs to be solved. So what we're going to do is perform the 4 moves from earlier until yellow is on the bottom, and then what we're going to do is move the bottom layer like this. Make sure you don't just do the next one because that'll mess up all your other progress. You move the bottom like this, and then you just continue doing that until all is solved. And just remember to move it all back at the end after you're done with that. Next, what we're going to do is I taught this in my 2x2 tutorial, I believe. What we're going to do is we're going to hold it to where one entirely solved corner, like we can see, this is completely solved. And what we're going to do is perform this algorithm. So we're going to go down like this, and then we're going to do this. The bottom layer. And not always will it solve it the first time. Now we do that again. And there you go. You solved your first cube. There's a couple cases though where none of the corners will be solved. You just perform the algorithm, and then one will be solved, and then yeah. Anyway, I hope this tutorial helped, and I hope this encourages you to try to get faster and get into the speed cubing community, and possibly even enter competitions if you want. And I hope that this helped you solve your first cube, and I hope I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Maybe you learned something from it, maybe you didn't. Anyway, that's it for today, guys, and see you guys in the next one.